start to sort of play the timer a little bit when you're on the defense as well. You sort of chuck a few mouse in the mix, maybe some 60 TPs, and start to build up quite a hefty HP pool, and that very much is the case. W go for E100, IS4, IS7, mouse, Super Kong, and double E3. It's like almost the party mix as far as heavy tanks come.
Yeah, E3s are not really commonly picked that much anymore in EU, so we'll have to see what they do with that. Bricked, on the other hand, though, 50B, BZ, double IS4, 97, a mouse, and an E5. Now, that BZ is an interesting one on attack. We don't see it that often. Of course, it has the rockets, but the gun does struggle against these tanks of W, you know, that it's not a high pen gun whatsoever.
Well, the one good point, obviously, of the BZ is it can get into position pretty quickly, and you obviously see JS leading the charge up the hill. So I think, obviously, if we're looking as to why he might have brought this tank, it is to try to find some early damage, find some kind of early position. It seems like W are fairly across that, though. They haven't sort of left anything open to get shot. And one thing I will say about the BZ75s as well is that Brick did pick a lot of them earlier on today as well. Not necessarily on Himmelsdorf, a little bit more so on the open maps like the Cliff and the Prokhorovka.
Yeah, it's really good.
But maybe it's just a bit more of a pocket pick coming through from JS.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see if he can make it work. Like that gun is not a very nice one. Let's put it that way. It's rough to play with. It misses a lot of shots, even though you're fully aimed. So I want to see him make that tank work. Is going to be very important. Frugo actually driving behind that. Hold on, in an E3. He tried to go to G2 behind the little rubble pile there, but he goes down to 747 immediately.
Yeah, that is not ideal at all. Obviously, it's not a game-losing play. He's still alive. He's still a tank in the game. He's still a gun in the game. But if he were to get picked off pretty early on in the piece and convert this into a 6-on-7, then Brichter's really going to be in the pole position. Still interested to see what Brichter's going to do, because obviously we were talking about it in the break there between the rounds. Like, obviously this game a little bit slower than the previous one now. So does that play into the favor of W, or have Bricht maybe got something else in the back pocket?
I think for Bricht here, they got to kind of feel out the way that things are going where the rest of the tanks. So they have some decent info, though. They know quite a few tanks. They know Panuka's position. They know the Mouse's position of Itox, the E3 of Ali Frugo as well. It doesn't leave much information left to be gained, right? So they should have a pretty good clue on how to rotate at this moment in time, and know that 1-2 is relatively for free. They could put some pressure there, and Frugo taking another one in the meantime, down towards 277.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be long for this world, you know. You can't get out of that position once you're in that position, and inevitably something's going to go through. So you probably have to almost consider this as W pretty much a 6-on-7 now. And they're going to have to figure out what they want to do to sort of counteract that. Obviously, time's a bit of a factor. Have sort of bled a few minutes off the clock already here for Bricht, but they still have a fairly hefty chunk still to work with.
I mean, they have such a nice HP pool. They've also only spread the damage across. Right, there's nobody that's really low. Some people took one shot of damage, but they have taken a lot of positions. And you see 1-2, which is the area that I highlighted, is indeed open right now for the side of Brick. They are putting a slow and steady surround here on the tanks. That's a nice shot there from Aguirre onto the E3. Yeah, if you do hit the roof, then you will bend. But I like to say, Brick, they have that map control. They still have to convert it, though.
I think they're in a pretty good spot right now. I'll give some credit to JS, who I assume is calling for this roster now in the absence of Rainbow. He's quite experienced, and he's been around the block for a while, so I'm sure he's got the troops well and truly under command right now and sorting things out quite comfortably. There goes Critical grabbing that first pick. It's onto Frugo, one of the E3s out of the picture already here for W. You look at that and say, well, now it's really just a case of converting this. Obviously, it's a big advantage for Bricht.
Yeah, but
Dell is eating a lot of damage in that 50B, though.
I'm not sure what happened to him. Like, he peaked out and took a lot of damage for no reason. He's a little bit stuck now. Citizen has started the cap, though. But right now, you can see Whiterock's position kind of isolated in that I7. I mean, it's really good to have that window, but now that SP is coming with his E5 closer, you see the conversion as well of the return and Critical through the courtyard pushing up on towards that IS-7, and White Rock really has nobody to help him right now. It's just Hannes in that E100 on the 5 line, but he has to pull back as well. He does get the fire onto the return, though. Just not going to be too happy about that one, that's for sure. But now White Rock isolated in the IS-7, he's going to be falling here as well. It's another great opening for Bricked. I mean, if they find White Rock without losing too much, that is 2 tanks down for absolutely nothing.
Well, I can't imagine there's going to be a world where he's going to be able to get out of this one alive. Surely not. I mean, he could maybe try to drive out through the 3 line, but even then, yeah, he's stuck in the pillbox. There's not really anywhere to go at this point. JS eating a bit of damage. Aglio also on the cross, going low. But for the moment, they are locked in the 2-on-1 against the Mouse, which is not exactly the scariest of prospects, but they do need to pin their shots. And with the rotation coming through from the additional IS-4, you'd have to say Aglio and JS are pretty much done for, and this battle out on the 2-3 line is really the key point of the map for Brick now.
Yeah, Aglio and JS, they're, I think, trying to do a little bit too much for no reason, because they haven't really done any damage to Itox at all. Like, look at it, he's still at 3.1k HP. JS now trying to use the rockets to get around Panu. He's going to be falling for that, and that makes it closer than it really should be. At this moment in time, JS is not going to be escaping. Him and Aglio, they're going for a little bit too much of a push. Brick still has an opportunity here, but that HP lead that they had is now starting to fumble. But they are still, however, in a 5-on-3. They're now starting to cap with Dell as well, which I think is good. They're slowing down the game in that regard. They're not continuing for the push. They realize that it's too close for comfort. They'll send the I-7 for the cap as well to close out this game and really just go up 2-0.
Yeah, crit in that IS-4, just trying to keep Hannes busy for the moment. Not exactly the cleanest of fights for him, you'd say. It's not exactly one that he's guaranteed to win, but if he can keep them busy, then he'll be all right. And 27 seconds for that reset. Panuka is going to have to be the one to grab it in the IS-7. No one else is close enough, and even he may not even make it at this point. You've got 3 tanks watching him, and yeah, look, I don't know if they even stop firing at him, would he make it in time? But obviously they're not going to stop firing. He's on 479 HP. Citizen in that Mouse just needs to slide one more shot through. Won't quite actually get it in the end. Oh, 1 HP for Panuka, but it doesn't matter. The base cap has gone through, and Bricked are up 2-0. I'm actually kind of shook, Daki. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know what timeline we're in. I don't know what storyline we're at. The thing is, you know, I've been here before, right? I've seen APAC teams playing internationally, and I've thought, man, they're doing all right. And then things start to fall apart later on in the series. Like, they started the series earlier on today against the Burbology, kind of all right. And then it fell apart towards the back end. So they kind of have to keep it up. That's the thing for me. It's like, yeah, it's great to get a 2-0 on Himmelsdorf, your opponent's map choice, no less. But you know, it's not over until it's over.
Yeah, and I'd say they did well in this round, but I think W gave them so much for free as well, if you think about it. If you looked at the setup that they had with Fugo and that E3, just going down for nothing, you're in a 6 versus 7 already at that point. And then later on, the positions that W were holding, they weren't really synced. You know, nobody could really help one another. White Rock then isolated in his I-7. That was another pickup. And then even, I think Brick made it even closer than it really should have been. There's no real reason for them to push down 0 line, you know? That was a bit over eager. They gave up 2 tanks, I'd say for free, like actually for free. I think they did 1 shot of damage to the Mouse and 1 shot of damage to the IS-4. They lost 2 tanks for it. It could have been even a harsher scoreline for W, and I think they're not playing very well right now, but it takes one team to make mistakes and the other one to capitalize upon it, and Brick has been doing that.
So Prokhorovka going to be the next map choice. Now, obviously, we've sort of highlighted it already, but W did pick Himmelsdorf. Their map now gone. It's generally, you know, obviously the way that I look at this is, you know, you want to ensure that you're 2-0ing your own map pick, and at worst case, 1-1ing your opponent's map pick. That's how you win a series. So if you've already gone down 0-2 on your map pick, you're already like not 1 step behind by being down 2-0. You're kind of 2 steps behind by being 2-0 down, but also having lost your own map pick. So moving into Prokhorovka, I mean, look, at the end of the day, I think with World of Tanks, most of these maps have been around for such a long time. A lot of them haven't had huge changes. So most most players, most teams should be relatively comfortable moving on to the majority of maps, but there is still something to be said about moving on to your own map choice up 2-0 and look, potentially being able to close the series out 4-0. What a ludicrous assumption that would be at this point,
you predicted it though.
It's possible. I didn't believe it when I predicted it, but
predicted it. I mean, maybe
maybe I should have just doubled down. Maybe I should have just been sitting there saying, "Look, I knew all along. APAC was the best region, man." That's what I used to do. Remember, that's what I used to do in WGL, and it didn't go very well for me. So
it didn't go well for you at all. I mean, it was usually group stages, and then it was
there was the one time EL almost made it out of groups, but they lost 5-4 in a tiebreaker against the North American. I think they lost against Elevate. Anyway, that's a bit of a throwback.
Probably.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. I was so disappointed because I remember I was casting with Rukil, who was the North America caster at the time as well. It's literally like exactly this. I don't know why they keep doing it to us, It's like, okay, you're an EU caster, I'm an APAC caster. Let's just put them together and watch them like fight on the
for me, it's
totally
fine because most likely I'm getting out ahead.
In theory.
The odds are kind of stacked against you. They're really, really in my favor.
Yeah. That's right. Anyway, look, we're on to Prokhorovka. We will be in just a second. And I tell you what, again, Bricht is showing up. They're impressing. Sure, it hasn't been 100% the cleanest of gameplay, but they're doing enough at the moment.
2-0 in a best of 7. One more fail from W, it's match point. I don't see teams really coming back from a 3-0, personally. It happens so rarely. Only, like, in my opinion, like the most experienced teams really come back from such a scoreline. So for W, in my opinion, they got to win this game here, or it's really going to start falling apart because Himmels was not a good showing. It was really not a good showing for them. Maybe what do you think? Used to the APAC meta, man. It's definitely possible. We've seen this before where a team plays against a team for a different region, and it's like nothing works because they're just not used to it.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a factor. The other thing that I was going to say is I don't know if it's a massive talking point, but is ping a discussion here as well? Because I know being from APAC,
on US Central. I don't know what's the ping would be on US Central for APAC, but I think the EU players,
200 or so.
I think the EU players, I play on an A. I can tell you that from Belgium, I have around 110, 120 ping. The furthest anybody lives from W is Poland, so you could say like 130, maybe 140. So ping advantage, it would be for the Europeans.
Yeah, but I mean, the point I actually wanted to make was like I think APAC players tend to play off server more often than EU players would, I would assume. So are they more used to it? Yeah, like maybe that's a thing.
That could be a thing that is actually, it takes a little bit to adjust to. I think once you do, it's rather easy to play with it.
Oh, for sure.
But it's all about like, how familiar are you with it. So yeah, for the EU players going from 20 MS, the goated MS, which you never had in your life, to like 100 plus, it's probably a little bit of an adjustment.
Yeah, indeed. Anyway, let's have a look and see what we're going to be bringing to the table for Prokhorovka. We've got triple IS-7 for Bricht, makes a lot of sense. Super Conk there as well. Nice set of hull down tanks. Batchat for Dell, CS for SP, and the returned in the STRV. Always an interesting setup. Looks like it's a very similar approach on the side of W as well.
But double mouse on Proco is not too common though. Double mouse, triple CS, and STRV, and IS-7. I'd say this is kind of an unorthodox lineup actually, because nobody really plays with 3 CSs and double mouse. So this is going to be a slow-ish defense from W because you need to utilize that double mouse somehow.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, it's kind of a bit of a throwback to the mouse meta of the old days, but yeah, didn't really think I would be seeing a mouse on Prokhorovka since then. Don't mind seeing the Batchat, a bit of a throwback again. I'm always a big fan of the Batchat, and I think in Dell's hands, he's quite experienced in the Batchat in the 5v5 format, so he should be able to transition that across here into 7v7. He's also got the nice little backup there with SP in that CS63 as well. So they'll work in tandem, take control of the hill on the 0 line pretty early on in the piece.
Yeah, look at the
interesting
CS.
to note.
You see?
Yeah.
The spotting equipment fully. This is, I don't know how meta this is in APAC, for example, but in EU, it'd be very common. So the lighting, they bring the spotting CS with like CVS, Lenore's, and optics. And it kind of takes over that role of that T100. Because the CS can actually still fight.
We've got a very isolated STRV. SP is getting blind fired. So big chunk of damage already onto the CS63 is not an ideal start for Bricht. But I do find this kind of a cool setup from Bricked because they've just sort of left that STRV on its own on the 1-2 line to its own devices. And I'm sort of waiting to see what the response is going to be here from W. The issue, of course, is Bricked is bleeding quite a bit of HP at the moment across the board, up on the hill and down in the heavy brawl, but maybe not quite so bad anymore as they've started to dump over. And that IS-7 for W is not going to survive for too much longer. They have isolated a tank. 15 HP. JS is going to have to put one more shot in.
It is actually super unfortunate that they low roll there because look at JS. He's already taken one more shot of damage because of it. He missed as well, the shot. And now the damage comes in from the back line. There was like a low roll, I think, from Citizen. And you can see how really awful that is for Bricked right now and how much they're bleeding to really try to shut down this IS-7. They're not even going to get him, and they're not going to be happy about that one.
No, certainly not. I mean, it is what it is sometimes, right? That's just the game, but that's turned what looked to be a pretty good situation. And again, initially what would be a 6-on-7 favoring Bricked into a 6-on-7 favoring W. So for the first time, actually, tonight, W have got the advantage. And I mean, you look at this and you'd have to say this has to be an unlosable round now for them. They've got such a health lead. They've got obviously an extra tank in the game and they're playing on the defense. I don't really see a world where Brick can get back into this one unless maybe W just drives at return for whatever reason and lets him with that high DPM farm a couple of tanks. But I mean, obviously they don't need to do anything, right? They're on the defense, so
They don't. They're on defense. They're chilling now. You know, I was a little worried because I liked the peek onto the IS-7. However, I think they then got stuck into we have to kill him mentality. Like he has to die, and sometimes you got to back out of it. Like after the initial trade, they didn't take any damage at all, basically. Like 1 or 2 shots, right? And they did a lot to the IS-7, and then they wanted to kill him, but when you want to close out the kill, all of a sudden everybody's aiming at you and everybody's getting shots. At first, it's a surprise. When you do it the second time, everybody's ready for you. And you could see how much damage they then took as well. And if they got the kill, then it could still have been worth it, but it wouldn't be the greatest trade anymore. But then he survived, and then they went for round 3, and round 3 was a disaster.
Yeah, indeed. All right, well, looks like the forces of Bricked are regrouping down towards the southern side of the map. I'm not really sure what you do in a situation like this. Obviously, they've got to do something. They've still got 4 minutes to play. It looks like the 2 IS-7s are going to go over to the western side of the tracks to try to make something happen over there. But, I mean, it's quite a grim picture, especially given the fact that you're up against 2 Mouse as well. Like, you know, if you even thought, yeah, maybe there's a world, you'd probably be hoping there's a couple of tanks you can blow up pretty quickly, but unfortunately not the case for Bricked here. They've got a huge health pool still to chunk through in under 3.5 minutes.
Yeah, and pushing onto the mouse of Hannes is also not a great thing, though, because you have Citizen here half HP, you have SP also below half HP, and then really you just have Igleo. But if you look behind this mouse of Hannes, what do you see? You see the STRV, you see the CS, you see Barkus as well, not relatively too far away. And even Itox from the middle can give a shot. So I don't even think if they push this that they will be able to kill the mouse before they all die.
I don't think so either. Yeah, it's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. Right? It's a rock and a hard place. There isn't really a right answer here anymore for Bricked. But being on the attack, you've got to do something. So they may as well hold their W key and hope for 3 ammo racks in a row. That's probably the only thing that gets them out of this sticky situation that they found themselves in. IS-7's on the way. SP there to help out. And now we'll get to watch how things play out. Aglio is just eating so much damage initially over the top, and Hunter's in that. Mouse is totally okay. Oh, he's on fire. Look, that's a little bit of a stroke of luck for Bricked, but I'm not sure that's really going to help them enough.
Yeah, that's definitely a stroke of luck that they could use, but you could still see Citizen and Aglio. They're really getting battered and bruised for this. I think Citizen got tracked even as well, down to 253 HP. He does make it though, but you can already see White Rock now coming for the counter rotation, the repush, and they just don't have the HP for Bricked. I mean, the 2 guys with HP right now, Dell and the Returned, are currently not on this side of the map.
No. Yeah.
And they're
White
driving
Rock
into a mouse.
is going to grab himself another one. Aglio is unfortunately now stuck in essentially a 1-on-3. I mean, look, SP's up on the hill. He can probably get some shots in on this, but reality is it is unlikely to make much of a difference. Critical goes down there after grabbing himself one. And so that is the end of all bar 3 of the Bricked members. It's been a pretty smooth game from W. Nice little bit of a return to form. Might have felt like they were, in a sense, kind of out of this series, moving into Prokhorovka, but I think they've found themselves back on the horse and they're off to the races.
Yeah, they really needed this round, though. It was very important for them. Dell getting spotted out as well. I think that was the spotting CS that came back to A2. You see it on the corner there. Now Dell trying to 1v1 the mouse. He has to get towards the side. I mean, he does have 5 shots, so he will find Frugo together with the return. But the big ram, they're actually coming out as well from that mouse in reverse. They do shut down Frugo, but that's going to be it as SP gets picked off over the rails. Yeah, good shot there from Panu. And for Brick, they're going to be kicking themselves a little bit with that unfortunate low roll for the kill shot. But for W, I mean, they really, really needed this round to get back in this series. Like I said, if it was 3-0, I would really not favor their odds anymore.
Yeah, look, it's just one of those things. What I will say, obviously, for Bricked is it would be quite frustrating, I'm sure, to be in their shoes, suffering in that way, but they started off really well. You know, sometimes the game doesn't go your way, but they still have a lead. They still have an advantage. So if they can, again, if we're talking about it, right, we were talking about, yeah, you want to 2-0 your own map. Failing that, at the very least, get yourself a 1-1. Make sure you don't go down 0-2. You're still ahead in this series. And at this point, if they just go tit for tat for the rest of the series, they will inevitably win. So I think they kind of do have to take a bit of a mental reset and have a bit of a chat about it and say, look, yeah, it happens, but we can get back on the horse ourselves and continue on as we were on Himmelsdorf. Take a look at the post-damage stats here, and yeah, I mean, obviously it's not going to be a very pretty picture when we're taking a look at the bricked side of the coin, but Critical in that Super Conk has put together a fairly decent damage number himself.
Yeah, you kind of expect that from a Super Conqueror, though. That's the kind of tank that you want to be topping the boards, and it's the same from W. That SCRV, you want to be using that tank for what is good, which is doing damage. Ali there comes on the top. Yeah, for Bricked, I mean, they still have 2-1. You know, if we go even Stevens here, 1-1 into the next game, they are still going to be very, very happy, right? Very, 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 very happy.
Yeah, Muro's the next map after this as well.
Yeah,
that tends to be a bit more of a 1-1 map. So
I gotta check who's I'm not too sure who's attacking or defending first on Muro, because it's actually really important if it was to be 3-1 for Bricked.
W is attacking first.
That's unfortunate for Bricked. That's a bit unfortunate, because if you're 3-1 up and you get Muro attack, which is considered like the favorite side nowadays, just because ever since the map got reworked, the attack is just better.
Yeah.
Then they were looking really good, 3-1 going on to attack. You're chilling. If it's 3-2 already, then W feels like, okay, we just got to win our defense now and we're back in the game. But that comes down to Prokhorovka too, though. First, player Brick still needs to pick up their defense. Otherwise, it's 2-2 going into Moravanka, and then it's expected or likely to be a tiebreaker. Although I do think that 5v5 and 7v7 on Moro are 2 worlds apart.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I can't necessarily speak too much to the 7-on-7 side. The vast majority of the tanks that I've been watching over the last 3 years really has been 5v5, and I think that's again a little bit of a detriment for these Bricked players, is that they are going to have to sort of adapt on the fly. But I believe Bricked has been playing together for a little while. They've got some degrees of experience, and some of these members, they've been around since the 7v7 days, so they would obviously have at least that in the back of their minds as well. It seems like they're kind of up to the task. I don't think it's much of a talking point, unfortunately, at this point, to be honest. So, look, let's see what we can get from the second round of Prokhorovka. I would say this is going to be a very big tell for the way the rest of this series is going to play out, right? If Bricked can get the dub here, then by and large, I would say they're very much still in the driver's seat for this series. But if this goes back to 2-2, especially if the circumstances are sort of weighing on the minds maybe of Bricked, what happened in that first round of Proc, then I could start to see W sort of clawing their way back in here and ultimately sort of not making that reverse sweep, because obviously it's not a reverse sweep just yet at this point, but that kind of a result, I think, is probably what I would have in mind.
Let's hope for Brick that they take this. I want to see the guys from W pushed against the wall, for content purposes. But it does mean that your prediction is already incorrect, though. Your strong faith in the APAC
True.
region, 4-0. It's not going to be happening today. Still an opportunity later, though. True.
Yeah.
Did you predict
exactly.
4-0 there, too?
Absolutely,
I
mate.
mean,
Full faith.
you're so biased. Unbelievable. Where's the neutral cast, man? Come on.
Hang on. Didn't literally everyone from Europe predict for the Europe team?
Yeah, but that's
Like,
not bias. That's realistic. There's a difference between
no,
those two.
just because there's 3 of you and there's 1 of me doesn't make it bias, all right?
I mean, if we look at the statistics, how many times has APAC won a grand finals or gotten to the finals and the grand finals?
Hang on. When was the last time Europe beat APAC in a LAN final? I can't remember. Like, it might have been 2017 or something like that.
It still stands, though.
2018.
Still stands.
28, mate, that's ancient history at this point. We might as well have been playing before 1.0 at that point.
It may be in the past, but that doesn't mean it's forgotten. Anyways, Bricked on defense. Curious lineup, actually. Triple IS7 and S-Hunk. Double Batch on an STRV. Okay. Double Bat on Proco. Want to see it work.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun, definitely, if it works. You don't quite have as much mobility on the side of W, which is interesting. Obviously, they're on the attack, and normally you'd be expecting to sort of be doing a little bit more rotating back and forth around the map if you are on the attack. So, yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what Brick is going to bring to the table here, and if those 2 bat chats are going to work in tandem, which it doesn't look like they are. They've got one on the western side of the tracks, one on the eastern side of the tracks.
Yeah, they're just using them as spotters, but SP doesn't really have spotting equipment. I mean, he has a loner's exhaust, right, which gives him the extra camo, but not the CVS, not the optics, for example. So that is interesting, the difference there between the APAC team and the European team, where EU teams will almost exclusively use bat shots for this. Sorry, CSs for this, but the APAC team decided to use those bat shots. And SP and Dell are now starting to group up, though, that tandem that you're talking about for a potential push.
Yeah, indeed. Already the exchanges going back and forth. Not quite favoring Brick so far, and W getting some nice control of the hill on the 0 line is starting to become a little bit of a problem. Bricked again. They want to hold that W key. They've got the double bat chat, but so far the bat chats haven't been able to find their target. Panuka in that super conk goes down early, and that is the power play over and done with now for Bricked, and we have to look to W now to swing things back in their favor. I don't know if they've done enough with the double bat chat there.
They have the biggest issue that Ali and the SCRV on the K line on K2 is just hammering down on all of these things. The IS7's over peaking, the IS7 in the 3 line. He's having easy pickings upon it. There's nobody to spot him, and that is the biggest issue. He had these bad shots. They find the Super Conqueror, but they both died for that, and they need to find Ali to have a chance here. And JS is not going to be making that whatsoever. Gets shut down by the SCRV, actually. And for W, I mean, they'll take this straight. They lose Manuka, but they gain everything in return.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's a trade you take every day of the week. Citizen in that super conk as well. As soon as he pops his head up over the ridge, he's taken a bunch of damage as well. Aglio looks like he might be the next focus of fire after Critical goes down, sitting inside of that bowl, quite isolated away from his team. And I mean, I'm sure Return to the back of the map right now has got no shortage of targets to be firing at, but the reality is the numbers are just not there for Bricked, and they tried to do something similar to what they've been doing all day long, and that was to try to play aggressive. It was to try to get on top of W early on in the piece, but this time W just way too well set up, and the crossfire that those bat chats drove into was an absolute nightmare, and ultimately you can see where it's ended up.
They need to find, if they want to do this, they need to find the SCRV as well at the same time. It's the only way, because otherwise, I mean, you can be down HP, but if you kill the Super Conk, one of your batch maybe lives. But you find the SCRV, you isolate the singular I7 in 1-2 line, which you then can kill from angles, which would even up the HP difference. But now they found the Super Conk. They lost 2 bad shots for it in return. And then there's not really any follow-up. They realize the SCRV is there, but they have no means of spotting him. So they can't really progress anymore. They just get shut down. They needed to kill the SCRV somehow.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess easier said than done at that point. But we'll take a look at the damage here and let's see what that STRV was able to do. 4.8k. Yeah, not a shabby number. And unfortunately, the bat chats, I think, are the key focal point here for Bricked. And you look at both of them. I mean, 3 shots hit and penned there for SP and for Dell. 2 shots pen, 4 shots hit. It's not exactly the prettiest of tales. Normally, if you're taking that bat chat, you want to at least be doing your tank's worth of HP, if not even more. You know, getting multiple clips off is kind of what you want to be aiming for, and they didn't really put themselves in a position to get more than one clip off, let's be real.
No, but that's also just the way that they were told to play, right? The pen ratio, they could have maybe hit some more shots, but they were shooting the last 2 on the move, trying to get to safety so they wouldn't die. Batchat in this current form and meta is not the greatest tank, I would say, because they have to shoot through really large HP pools like that Skunk, like 2.8k HP, and then you have to switch to the i7. It takes a lot of shots. You need almost flawless pen ratio, and if you've ever played the Batchat, you know that the gun is not the one that is always going to hit 5 out of 5. It just doesn't happen. And even then, they wouldn't have the burst to kill a second tank anyways. And even if they killed the i7, they still wouldn't have dealt with the STRV.
Yep. Look, it is what it is, I guess. And now we move on to Muravanka, and the scoreline is 2 apiece.
That's how quickly your story, your fairy tale story is diminishing.
Yeah, look, I've still got a degree of faith. All I want to see at this point now is we go 1-1 on Muro, and hopefully we get the advantage going into the tiebreaker. I think at the moment it probably would be W winning on the tiebreaker because they have got the faster attacking side win. That attack was very fast. So
compared to the Himmel's attack that bricked one that was a slower round. W right now has the side choice. Moro could change that though. Moro can be really a fast map. If a team decides to play straight towards that cap, which we see kind of often. I mean, that immediate base pressure is one of the more common tactics nowadays. Not too sure if that's really something that Bricked will be going for. Again, maybe APAC meta a bit different. We'll have to see. But for W, I do see them go straight for that base, for that, like putting very early aggression with 7 players, trying to go and force that immediate brawl. Because on Moro, if you're not ready to defend that cap, you lose. You always lose.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would very much be the expectation from my side as well. Again, at least as far as 5v5 was concerned, that was pretty much what we saw. Like, no one's really looking through the Magic Forest these days. No one's trying to go too deep into the town. You might have someone set up at church or 1 or 2 players kind of hanging around there, but by and large, it was pretty much, let's just get like at least 2 or 3 tanks on this cap right here and see what we can do from there. Hopefully set up some sort of crossfires, and when the reset attempts come through, we try to brawl it out. That's pretty much the name of the game, at least as far as the 5v5 format was concerned. So we'll see how it plays out, I guess. But yeah, tense times now. Both teams equalizing.
In 5v5, did they always go for the cap straight, or is it more like balanced?
Generally, it was like, okay, we're going to go pretty much straight to the cap. I mean, it would depend on your tank lineup, what you chose, what you brought to the table. But I think for the most part, it was always you would see 1 or 2 tanks in there pretty quick. Yeah.
Yeah. For Bricked, it's not going to be too much of a surprise then. 5v5 and 7v7, like we said, core gameplay is the same in essence. That extra 2 players, it does make a difference, of course, but it's not a whole world apart. And if they're already used to that cap pressure, they might be able to deal with that. And they're going for this double bat shot again, man. Double bat, an Skunk, a Mouse, double IS7, and a BZ.
Yeah. I'm not so sure I'm super sold on that after seeing the last round. But we'll see what we get from it. I don't know. Like, I think you bring 1, maybe. I don't know about 2.
They will struggle against this lineup, though. Like, the 60 TP is very healthy, hard to pen for the bats. I7 is not that easy either. The Skunks are just super healthy and chew through bat shots like there's no tomorrow because of that hash. And the E5 doesn't really... It's also pretty hard for the bat shot to get 5 out of 5, and it has great DPM. There's a lot of things here for the W lineup that will chew through those bat shots.
Yeah, well, let's find out how it plays out. W on the attack, and, well, no super quick moves being made from them. Obviously, the CS63 into the Magic Forest is going to try to do a bit of scouting here, and we'll spot a couple of the IS7s, but the Batchat's as of yet unlit.
Yeah, but the IS7s are spotted, though. That gives a lot of info straight to W, right? Because look at the transition now, Elfish. You can see that CS got the double IS7 spot, and the rest of the tanks from W, they're starting to converge towards that gap.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just wondering that if he doesn't get out of there quickly
It's a
enough,
CS though.
bat chats, yeah,
I mean, they might
they
spot him, but
they're definitely hot on his heels.
yeah, he's spotted though. But he's gets tracked there.
Ooh.
If they were 3 seconds earlier and they tracked him at that point, it would have been a disaster. But now we got to shift back to watching out for this cap because it's an immediate 3-man cap pressure. Return and Jess are the 2 defenders of this base. So they're gonna have to deal with this. And Jess, we're gonna rocket boost back across the first one too, using that BZ's mobility. Okay, interesting to see. But the rest of the tanks need to start coming in though for the side of Brick. They do get a nice reset there on towards Itox in the 60p. That's from the forest side even. And so far, I will say Brick has done a pretty good job at surrounding this. And W, they didn't go for that instant cap pressure. So if they can find a reset here on Panu, which they do find on Ali, then they can actually work for this on Brick.
Yeah, but as long as it's still, 20 seconds, that's going to be problematic for Brick. Luckily, they do find one of the more consistent resets, and even W pushing an extra tank off the cap now does start to make that cap pressure largely irrelevant, I would say. So trades just going back and forth at this point. Nothing really of note to speak to. No tanks getting low thus far, and that's obviously going to be the key focal point. Who loses the first tank at this point? And also, what do these bat chats do? Dell, you can see at the moment, still kind of lurking behind White Rock in that CS63. And if you can get on top of him, maybe there's some fireworks to be had.
But because of that non-immediate cap pressure from W, it wasn't straight, right? We can now see that they find Frugo. Frugo, like in the Z5, left to his own devices, nobody to help him, nobody to cover him. He's just gonna fall for this. And because W didn't go straight for that cap, it gave Brick time to set up angles from the forest to reset. And now you can see W just trying to drive down 1-2 line. Itox in the 60p leading the charge. And even this is slow because Frugo was basically already dead before he started pushing. And look in the north, the CS63. Where is he supposed to go? Where does White Rock run to?
Yes, he's going to get those boosters going. He's going to try and get out of dodge. I'm not sure that he's really going to be able to survive at this point if the rest of those forces from W continue to chase. But I tell you what, on the other side of the map, White Rock is suffering much the same fate. You never like to see 2 bat chats rolling over the hill at you. And, well, he'll do his best to try to get some damage back down. But that was always a foregone conclusion. It's a 1-for-2 trade so far. W certainly suffering at the hands of Bricked right now. They've lost all control of the map. They have lost an extra tank. They are down on HP. The return is starting to get low. He's down to a 1-shot, so maybe they can equalize things here, but if return can at least get 1 or 2 more shots in here in that super conk, that could really be a big difference maker.
They do have that extra. Now that double bat shot starts becoming a real danger though. The HP start dropping, tanks no longer need 5 shots to die, right? So now that double bat shot, that flanking potential is really starting to kick in. Once they get those in position, that may be the coffin, nail in the coffin for the side of W. You can see already one of the bat shots they're putting in a shot. I think SP from the side behind that building. Panu now over peeking against Critical, who gets the shot on towards that E5. And now Dell coming in as well from the outside. SP though in the meantime taking a humongous amount of damage actually. Dell coming in, wants to pick up Panu, shut down that crossfire, and Break this again, making it way too close for comfort.
Oh, he's driven into a corpse as well, so yeah, that's going to slow things down a little bit. I mean, the thing is, Bricked is on the defense, so it's not as if they need to be forcing this so hard, but Dell's going to go up and over the top, and he is going to lose almost all of his HP. Has to make sure that he finishes this kill off, does not, and that is not good at all for Bricked. I think that might actually put W back in the driver's seat. Critical is the only tank with really any HP to his name. Aglio as well, but man, how have Bricked let this one slip?
They started to close the distance for some mysterious reason. When they had to keep the distance, they don't have an issue resetting this base anymore. You know, there's nowhere that W can cap when they have play from that side. You know, the flipped side, there's no opportunity to cap for W. So all they really have to do is establish D1, where you see the Bacha roughly, but with a different tank than a Bacha, you know? And have those Bachas like Dell and SP work the outside of the map. One of them can be 1-2, that's all fine. But if Dell was going K-line there, for example, well, if he wasn't forced to push in, then he would be able to get shots from the back end of these tanks. Now he came in, had to go over the top, hit a wreck on the way there, and then everybody was able to just focus them down real quick.
Yeah, I mean, it did not look very good at all there from Bricked. I'm Not going to enjoy watching that one back, I'll tell you that much for free, but it is going to be W that do get themselves the win, and they'll be up 3-2. So now the pressure is really on for Bricked, right? They have put themselves in a position to be actually on top, and they've sort of squandered that, and now, yeah, they're moving on to the attack of Muro, so there's something at least to be said there, but
They should have
that
had
was
this,
not a
man.
very
They
clean
should have had
display
this.
at all.
It's a bit reminiscent of Himmelsdorf and their attack, where they push down zero line unnecessary, a bit too eager, wanting to do too much. A lot of similar vibes in this game. They did not need to close this far in. They had to play a bit more on distance, play the angles, and just hold down the cap. And there would be no way back for W. Really, there would be no way back. But because they allowed themselves to get closed in, being close to the corner, I think Citizen and the Mouse getting farmed by those, look at the W lineup, they have a lot of tanks with good guns. The Eskong C5s, they have good guns. They're going to be penning that Mouse basically the entire time, right? So you don't want to be
Yep.
close range for that. And even he came close to the corner. And then the I7 under has nowhere to go. Like, it felt like they wanted to close out the game, kill them all, when really they had to take a step back, look at it from a distance, and a W make the play. Because at the end of the day,
Yeah.
they were defending.
Yeah. Look, again, it sort of ties into what I've been saying this whole time, is that they do like to hold the W key, right? They like to be the one that's proactive. They like to be on the front foot. And I think in this case, it's definitely cost them. And not even to mention, like, okay, yeah, you're now down 3-2, but the fact that you're moving on to the attacking side of Muro to now have a good chance at winning this series still, you have to win on your attacking side of Muro in under like 2.5 minutes, because that proc attack was so fast from W. If you want to have the advantage going into the tiebreaker, then you need to have a very fast attacking side win here, as well as obviously getting the win to begin with.
I think they should focus
it
on
doesn't-
getting the win first, and
Yeah,
I don't really think
but you know
about
what I
the
mean? Like
time.
it's just
I'm more curious about
one
their,
bad thing
their
on
mental
top of the
state
other, is
after
my point.
that game. Because if I'm playing
Mm.
that game, and I think if you're playing that game as well, and you know that you're winning, and then you really just hand it back to your opponent, you're like, here, take the win. Like, we had you completely. You lost the game. There would be almost no way back for you in it if we played properly. But we handed you the win. You're on match point now, and now we got to fight for tiebreaker. It's not the greatest position to be in mentally, especially with what's
No.
at stake here. Of course, because they would want to get these points right from a win.
Yeah, well, they need the points from the win. Like, they don't go through to tomorrow unless they win this series. Like, there is no world. Even if they get a tiebreaker, like, it's just not enough, because they won't catch W, who's already on 3. So they need to win this series. And the same is for the case for Rejects in the next matchup. Both of the APAC teams need to win this next series if they want to have any chance of making it through to tomorrow. So, yeah, pressure's on, absolutely, going into this, what could be the final game of this first matchup. And it's going to be Bricked on the attack. It's going to be W on the defense of Muravanka. There is still potentially a chapter yet unwritten, but at this point in time, Brick down 3 rounds in a row must not be feeling too fantastic. Confidence has taken a hit for sure. Are they tilted? Are they calming as well as they could be? Well, we will have to wait and see, but yeah, definitely not a good look at the first round of Muravanka, and some, I think, painful VOD watching when they go back to take a look at that one.
It's not over yet, right? I like how you were so hyped for them in the beginning, and now we're like,
Well, see, the thing is, like, I've been here before, like, and I even said that while we were casting.
Flashbacks,
Like,
PTSD.
Yeah, I've been in this position where, like, and it's the irony is, like, okay, yeah, APAC teams generally don't have the greatest of games, but, like, it's not as if they can't, right? That you can see that it's there, but it's just not being converted. It's just not being executed. So they can get themselves in good positions, but I think it's maybe an experience thing that just unfortunately sort of falls apart a little bit in those high pressure situations. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, I'm always of the opinion that, like, you can't write it off until it's finished, and that seems to be ringing quite true in this series as well.
Well, Bricked here has it all to do if they want to make it to tomorrow, and they're going to be trying to make that double I7 mouse, double S-Kung, a E5, and a bad shot work out for them on the attack of Muravanka.
Indeed. Similar kind of a looking lineup from W as well. Double Super Conk, they got a 60 TP, IS7, mouse, Batchat, and CS63. So a little bit more in the ways of mobility this time coming through from W with the 2 medium tanks getting picked up. And this will be interesting to see what Bricht is going to do actually here on the attack. Are they just going to full send it to the 1 cap?
Nah, they can already see they're definitely splitting in some regard. They could still go towards the cap, but it will not be instant. You have SP, Dell, and Citizen already on the outside. You can see the mouse go 5 lane and go straight towards the cap, but you don't really have a bad shot at an I7 follow up behind that most of the time.
All right, well, I think the most important thing here is if you get off to an advantage, maybe just try to slow things down a little bit. SP has been spotted in the Magic Forest there, so he'll just back his way up. But he's got a big role to play in this one, right? He is the scouting tank. He is the map control tank here for Bricht. And WCI has driven straight onto the cap, and he is down to half HP. So, again, not the ideal start to the game here for Bricht, but getting some cap pressure at least.
Nice shot, though, from WCI coming up here. Yeah, gets a good peek on towards Barkers. He did take a 60p and I7 shot to get on this cap to begin with. You can see the 60p there on the outside pushing up. That is Frugo. And you got to be careful, though. Look at the conversion here, Elfish. Look at what W is doing as a reaction to this. They had some info on the forest, and now you see all of them come towards 1-2 line. And Bricht, I don't know if they are ready or if they're even aware of this, because it's going to be the full repush.
Well, SP's not seeing anything, and the fact that he's not seeing anything and the fact that he also knows he's not spotted is probably information in itself. But does it come through a little bit too late here for Bricht? Are they well prepared and set up? I don't know if they're going to be able to keep WCI alive. The question is going to be whether or not they can trade down effectively enough. Yeah, he's going to die, but how much damage can you do on the way out? JS in that E5 as well is probably not in an ideal position. He's got nowhere to go. It's 1 down already for Bricht, and you'd say a second to follow shortly.
Yeah, JS in the E5 in a whole lot of trouble. He's getting pushed on by that bad shot, who's now just clipping out, but taking a lot of damage in return for it. White down towards 183. Panu now taking a lot of damage as well. White actually falling by SP, that flank, that quick flank from the bad shot actually coming in. He has 2 more available to do some damage with, but I will say Bricht did a really good job here at dealing the damage. They still need to convert this, though. They're down 1 gun. They have that extra HP, but you can see the snowball here of W just moving on towards critical now next in that S-Gunk, and he doesn't have nearly enough teammates to survive this engagement.
Yeah, W living up to their name certainly in this one. They are really just holding that W key. They've driven down the 1-2 line and picked off each individual tank 1 by 1, finding so many overmatches, isolating tanks. And yeah, again, you know, we keep going back to the fact that the health advantage is kind of still there for Bricht, right? They're at least keeping it even, but at the end of the day, inevitably, when you have less guns in the game, you're going to be able to do less damage, and sooner or later, that damage is going to overcome your advantage, and that's what we're seeing right now. Bricht down again, still at a numbers deficit, still at an HP deficit, fighting hard, trying to survive. SP has come off the reload, but I'm not sure he's going to be able to do enough with that bat shot, even though he's on full HP. Returned is here on his own in that Super Conk, and he is being chased by, well, another Super Conk and an IS-7, and that's never going to be a good sign for him.
No, and that snowball there from W, they just keep it going. They keep it going the whole way, all the way even. And for Bricht, it's going to be a hard-fought loss, starting off with a beautiful Himmelsdorf, and then falling on Prokhorovka and Moravanka there. A little bit of a throw, but it is going to be W to pick up this match in a 4-2 scoreline. Not really expected after the first 2 rounds, and probably not too happy if you're Bricht either. The way it went down there in the end. Even in this game, there was some potential, but you know, it's really hard to stop this snowball when you're kind of away from each other.
Yeah, look, I think at this point, obviously, there's not too much to say about it. The APAC team will be out of the picture, right? There's no question. They obviously lost both of their games. They can't make it through to tomorrow. But look, I thought they did put up some pretty decent rounds there. The first 2, obviously, there was, you know, one at least on Moravanka, which looked promising. Didn't quite get put together properly in the end, but hopefully, you know, if we get to see something similar to this again in the future and they sort of run it back, maybe we see a bit of a better performance in terms of just executing or at least converting those advantageous situations.
Yeah, they really had an opportunity on the last 2 Moravankas to make this work, and I think this one less than the one before, because it is hard to stop this lineup from W when it's driving through. You know, they find that first IS-7 of WCI, right? And then immediately you lose the E5, and they did trade well off of him, but you're down 2 guns. You also have a bad shot, who's reloading. So what do you really have effectively there for 40 seconds to a minute is those four remaining tanks, of which one is critical, which is in 1-2 line, and he gets swarmed by the W tanks. So you really just don't have enough burst to start killing those tanks. I mean, it took them even really long to then find the Eskon Cavalli, and Citizen overpeaked for it, lost basically all of his HP as well.
Hmm.
It was rough.
Yeah. Look, I'm just looking at myself right now, and I feel like I've actually dressed up for a funeral, and maybe that's where we're at this
Wow.
point, right? It's 4-2. Rest in peace, Bricked. You're out of the picture. We'll sort of have to hope maybe that Rejects can do something for APAC. But anyway, you've heard from us. We've been prattling on for a little while, so I think it's time now for us to jump back over to the analysts and see what they have to say about that first match.
Thanks a lot, guys. And Toxic, it was an amazing start from the side of Bricked 2-0 on the map W picked, but then it fell to pieces because W is going to be moving to the playoff with this victory 4-2. We have to say goodbye to Brick. They lost to the NA team, so we can confirm that those two are going to be playing tomorrow already.
I mean, W are just holding true to their previous approach in the last tournament, throwing at the start and then coming back with a clean remontada. They made it. They won 4-2, didn't even concede 1 point to the tiebreaker, which would, however, not have mattered at all. Bricked is definitely out of this tournament, and we will have Burbology versus W later today, facing off to see who gets which seat in the playoff bracket.
I don't think that it matters that much because those teams they're mainly fighting for the final prize of this extra spot at WCI, and they have to beat all of those teams to make it. So even though they could face a stronger team in the semifinals, they will have to beat them all to get to China. Next up, second match of the day we'll be covering is gonna be Opor against Reject. Once again, EU versus APAC. What's your take on it?
I mean, I feel like Elfish has some copium left, so maybe that's enough to fuel his team to get around on the board at least. But knowing Opur and how ruthless they can be, I feel like they won't really give the rejects any chance, and they will reject their application to get into the playoffs.
I think we probably have replays to summarize what happened between W and Brick between those two teams as we were starting on Himmels. We only missed the first one, but on the second one, you could see that Brick, they were well established. They had the kill on Frugo in the E3, and then they wait for White Rock. And from the side of W, this defense was not the greatest. You could see they were very passive, and they allowed Brick to take all the map control.
I mean, this replay reminds me of something we would have played at like 2020, because then it still fit into the meta. But the meta has evolved. We have new tanks. We have some new play styles. So not really great from W. And I mean, they did kind of manage to get back at least in terms of HP. The issue is they have these tanks stuck on the other side of the map. They have a mouse on A0, and everybody knows mouses are not too great at rotating. And Brick just managed to, stall some time here and cap it out.
Yeah, even though the HPs were looking okay for themselves at W, there's a huge tank advantage for Bricked, and as we said, the map control, the double cap, the ascent, and the 50B. But next up on Proco, W managed to have a pretty easy win on their defense and completely stop that momentum. You could see they tried to go for the overpick on Itox in the IS7. It looked great at the start with the initial picks, but afterwards you could see the trades going in W's favor, and you will even get the kill, if I'm not mistaken, from Barkis in the CS. So good stuff from W and their defense, holding strong, good sniping, good connections from the back, and Bricked actually having no answers to this defense.
So we've seen this 5-6 line plays before, right? But the issue is, if you want to go for this, you have to commit, because if you don't commit, you're just standing up on the ridge line and you're giving everyone shot.
Yeah.
Whilst when you commit, you at least get the one kill. You will have the CS still shooting you, but you will have the ridge line towards your left covering you. This was kind of their fatal mistake in this match, because it brought them just down so much HP. So even though they pushed on later, it didn't really help them.
And next up, interesting meta, double bad shots for the mid push. The first issue regarding that is that those players, they were spotted on the way before jumping over. So W had the time to react. You could see the E5 actually getting up on the rails to get some angles, the SCAV farming from the back lines, and even Hannes in his I7 getting some angles. So that burst damage from the back shot is going to take down Panuka. Itox is just going to make it away alive, but it was just not enough from the side of Brick, because you could see afterwards they were completely out of position, and W, they had that easy repush over the F line. Good stuff from W, and maybe questionable defense from the side of Brick.
I mean, it's definitely interesting. You know, Kian would have really liked those bad shots. It's his favorite tank, as I was told. Though, you know, the push could maybe work, but definitely not if you're spotted, because you just give W all the time to prepare for it. I feel like Ali just had a field day farming them. For W's Morovanka attack, we saw a very standard approach, you know, going to the one cap, applying some pressure there, and then just taking the fight to the enemy, over pushing this 1-2 line.
I think the big mistake here is from Bricked. They had the upper hand, but instead of actually going back with a tank over the K line to cover the only push W had, they went with the double bat shot to push over the A line. Indeed, they're going to take down White Rock. Indeed, it's a good trade as it's another match. But in return, they're actually giving W the opportunity to win that match, because this push over the south is not at all under control. And on top of it, there's a huge mistake from Bricked to actually overcommit and almost suicide, for example, with this bat shot, even though they were on their defense.
You know, Dell not just known for PCs, but apparently also known for pushing in for no reason. Because realistically, they are on the defense. They don't have to do anything. And in this situation, if you just stand on like K6, you can just free farm Panuka and Barkis here.
Yeah.
And, you know, the match would look a whole lot different. Pushing in there, not really. I don't really know what he was trying to accomplish. Also, not going for the cupola shots is something that would have some people fuming, right? Insane.
And next up, the last round of that match, Bricked was very spread off the map, and W went for something pretty convenient to play pretty easy. They went for the repush with their full team, expecting to have the overmatch and get Bricked actually split it as they were. You could see 3 to 4 tanks out of the fights. So even though they bleed a lot to make that push happen, they take down the tanks, the guns, and that's what's allowing them to take the victory on their defense, which is very hard on that map.
It's pretty hard, yeah, but I feel like they had all the momentum going for them here. So just straight up, well, YOLO pushing is kind of the way. Because in terms of mental capacity here, Bricked will be very scared, of course, because if they lose that round, they drop out of the wildcard tournament completely,
No.
which is not something you want to do, because only the first place of this tournament actually gets something, which is the qualification to the WCI tournament.